everyone, I'm Stan Mallow. Welcome to Paranormal Yacker. My guest today is Bill Konkaleski, State Director of the Michigan chapter of the Mutual UFO Network. I'll be yakking with him about his books, Experiencer, Raised in Two Worlds, and Experiencer 2, Two Worlds Collide. Bill Konkaleski, welcome to Paranormal Yacker.
Thanks so much for having me on. Thanks, Dan.
Your books are autobiographical. Experiencer, Raised in Two Worlds, covered your childhood years, learning to live with the abduction phenomenon. Experiencer 2, Two Worlds Collide, covers your abduction experiences during your early 20s. I would now like to cover both books during this interview. Here goes. Experiencer, Raised in Two Worlds, a true account of otherworldly experiences, is a very personal autobiography reflecting on your multiple childhood experiences of alien abduction. What is the earliest memory you have, Bill, of being abducted by alien beings?
My very first memory is actually very early. It's age 2. It's my earliest memory in life, in fact. I was in my room. It was nighttime. I was not yet asleep. A little gray being came into my room, walked into my room, looked down at me into my crib, and I was obviously terrified. I shrieked for my parents, and my mom just responded, "Go back to sleep, go back to sleep." I was not even asleep. Then the little gray guy, after a few moments, I don't know, remember how long exactly, seemed like forever, decided it was done looking down at me and got up and walked out of the room.
You're only 2 years old, very young, but did they say anything to you? If they did, what did they say? How did they communicate with you? Was it verbally or telepathically?
I didn't get so much a message as just an impression. It seemed like I was a novelty to this being, like, oh, look at that. Look at this little thing in here. Okay. And, maybe, and then it had other business in the house. I think that it might have been more interested in my older brothers or whatever. And maybe I was just something to check in on briefly. They weren't ready for me yet, so to speak. My next memory at age 4, I learned that, they do communicate and it's telepathic. At age 4, my experience with them at that age, they actually, one afternoon, I was in my room. I had just laid down to take a nap. Again, not asleep yet. I felt this vibration, this sort of pressure on my chest. They actually pulled me out of my physical form. There were 3 of them. They seemed very playful and very happy to see me. And we did this little experiment where they had me float to the top of the stairs. I was in a tri-level. So they had me float face first, down the set of stairs. And I fell like in a falling leaf motion pattern into the room that was at the bottom of the stairs. And they were all delighted. And I'm like, I got to tell my mom. And they're like, oh, no, don't tell anybody. So I didn't for a while. Right after I floated down the stairs, I found myself back in my body, looked around the house for the little gray guys. I couldn't find them. Then decided to try to reenact the experiment. So I crawled up to the top of the stairs, and then I crawled down the stairs, literally crawled down the stairs face first, and it was not the same pleasant experience.
Since you had multiple childhood abduction experiences, I was wondering at what intervals or time frames the aliens visited you, and did the same beings visit you each time, or were they always different?
There seemed to be, I guess, a job classification with these beings. It seemed like the small grays, there were 3-foot tall versions of these beings that seemed to be the blue collar worker amongst them. They did the manual labor, they did the extraction of me, brought me on board. And then for circumstances that required a little bit more finesse, there was a 5-foot tall version of them, sort of the white collar version of them, that seemed to be able to interact a little bit better with me. I was able to have conversations with them, whereas the little ones, it was much tougher to have conversations with them. They were so focused and so driven in what they were doing. There was no ease, no slack within their personality, essentially almost like drones. Beyond the 2 different variations of gray, I once, and only once when I was 16, saw a mantis being. This thing was 7 feet tall. It looked like a praying mantis wearing a tacky, like Dungeons and Dragons wizard robe. It was absurd. It would have been comical had the thing not been so scary. the mantis being, what was interesting was I had experienced this before I had any context of what was going on in my life. I just had a bunch of strange things happening one after another. I'm like, is this UFO related? Because I'd seen UFOs. Is this ghost related? Is this some sort of other type of entity? I had my communion moment and saw the communion book in the bookstore. I was still in high school at the time and got that. When I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, it was like a check mark. Like, yes, this happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. And not only did Strieber talk about beings that looked like the mantis being, he actually called them mantis beings too, which is also what I was calling them. So that was extra creepy.
Did you ask the alien beings why they chose you, or did they voluntarily tell you the reasons for contacting you and doing it multiple times?
The phenomena in general runs on my mom's side of the family, runs in the family, primarily my mom's side. So I have four older brothers, for example. The two oldest brothers, many paranormal experiences in their lives, like me. And then the two brothers, still older brothers, but between them, zero experiences. Very strange how that happened. My mom had some unusual things happen, my cousins, my grandparents. So it was on that side of the family already. And I think that the beings track people generationally. I think that's a big part of why I'm involved in it. Another thing that I don't know that a lot of people really realize is just the volume of people that have this type of experience. I've personally met hundreds of people since I joined MUFON in '93 that have had some type of experience that is a personal contact experience. Did I win a lottery of sorts? Yeah, I have an experience that not everybody has. I also meet so many people who have this type of experience that the odds of having this happen to you aren't as astonishing as a lot of people, I guess, might think. There are a lot of people out there having this happen to them. Is it the same reason? Is everybody being taken for the same reason? Or are people being taken for different reasons? And which possible category you could come up with do I fall in? I have no idea, except that I can point right away to runs in the family.
A number of people who have been abducted by alien beings often say they were given messages by the aliens and told to share those messages with fellow Earthlings. Did that happen to you? And if so, what message or messages were you told to share with others?
Here's the category I fall in within that. So a lot of people that I know who are experiencers, and speaking for the broader experiencer community, a lot of people receive messages about some impending Earth cataclysm. We need to take better care of the Earth. Some people receive messages that the beings themselves are in some sort of situation where they might not be able to produce their species any further, and they're looking to mix with us to some degree, and that's the message saying, thank you for helping us with this. Me, though, the category I fall in is I know they've told me a lot of stuff. I have very specific memories of them saying, here's something you have to learn, and then not remembering. And so I'm not like a spokesperson for any sort of climate attention or anti-nukes or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of good causes to get behind, I suppose, out there, but I haven't received anything from them that I am conscious of. It's all still locked. Whatever it is they told me, I can't remember.
Earlier in the interview, you mentioned that the aliens told you not to say anything to your parents, and you didn't as a youngster. Now, apparently, phenomena, it goes on in your mother's side of the family. Did you eventually speak to your mom about that, or siblings, or any friends? And if so, what was the reaction?
With my family, now my brothers are all about a year apart, and then there's a 6-year gap, and then I was born. So growing up, my older brothers already had unusual things that had happened to them. They discussed it openly in the family, and there was sort of an order within the family to not discuss it around me when I was so little, not to put ideas in my head, not to make me more scared than maybe I already was. But they listened to anything I told them. I told them so much, like, the 2-year-old thing I told them, obviously. And then I had many other things happen to me that I told them. I don't know. I didn't wait forever to tell them about the thing that happened to me when I was 4, but I did wait a while on that one. And, anything that I told them, they listened to, they seemed compassionate. They didn't share anything about themselves. They didn't say, oh, that's your imagination, or they didn't say, you're part of a big, strange thing and hold on to your hat. It was all very nice until I got into my teens and they're like, okay, here's some things we can tell you. By that time, I was full on having abduction experiences regularly. I was grateful to my family the way that they approached it. And yeah, so I was blessed in a sense by that. And I hung out with the type of quirky characters in high school and after that were fascinated by the phenomena and didn't think it was necessarily off-putting for me to tell my stories.
How did your childhood abduction experiences affect your adult years? And do you think the path you have chosen to travel in life is the result of those experiences?
I was on a phone conversation with another experiencer, Sandy Nichols, about 20 years ago now. How time flies. So he had asked me, did I ever wish that this had never happened to me? And I said, I don't know. I wouldn't recognize myself. I would be a completely different person. This has completely been my adult passion to look into this phenomena. In 93, when I was 22, I went to MUFON to explore what had happened to me. I led in with my UFO events that I've seen, and then some of the more personal stuff. Appreciated the respect that I got for telling my story. I felt like I had a great weight lifted off me, and so I jumped in and joined. Now I've been the state director for the Michigan chapter of MUFON since 2004, which is 18 years. I've been all in on this UFO thing, and I think that the beings, are well aware that I am more invested in what's going on than some people that have this type of phenomena and try to quarantine it and say, oh, that must not have happened to me, or I'm going crazy, or some other excuse, when this reality, this high strangeness reality is happening in their life, and they try to push it out in any way possible. I do think they appreciate, to some respect, those of us in the community that keep them in the conversation, that talk about what's happening, so that everybody doesn't forget that this is a thing that's really happening. I think that, I don't know if they pulled any levers or pushed me specifically in any directions with regards to the UFO thing about what I've been doing in life. But, I have a day job, and then I also do this. Like I said, I think that they appreciate those experiencers who talk about it. For my personal life, yeah, I definitely feel that they really very directly push me in directions. They are very invested in people's personal lives, where they live, who they date or marry. That seems to be a high level interest for them. For whatever reason, the whole human drama is of interest to them.
Experiencer 2, Two Worlds Collide, is a sequel to your first book. It covers your abduction experiences during your early 20s. Could you tell me some of those experiences, and in what way did they differ from your childhood experiences?
Great question. When I was young, very young, they tended to be playful. They tended to be friendly, very, let's play, let's all get together. Isn't this fun or whatever? And then when I reached puberty, it just seemed like they switched to all business and said, all right, we're taking you, this is happening. And so much of it, I have only fragmentary memories of the high school years, and so much of it runs together due to the high frequency of what was going on. And they, like I said, they were all business, and I was resistant to them, and the relationship, if you could call it that, wasn't great between us. Right around when I got to 18, 19, they let up a little bit and offered me some breathing room, some space. They're like one example I had, strangely enough, I knew they were around the house. I knew that they were in the backyard. I said, I don't want to necessarily see you, but if you would call me on the phone, I'll pick up. And there were actually a couple of events that just exactly like that. But in both cases, nobody was there on the phone. It just seemed like, they listened to me. They're giving me some leverage here in what's going on. One thing that also was different was, growing up, I don't think they had as much direct interest in who I was with, like dating or whatever. But in my early 20s, I was dating this one girl where we went to a park. The whole story is a lot more complicated than I could probably easily say in an interview of this length, but it's in my book. I guess that's a plug for my book to say that. The two of us were up on this hill after dark in this park, and we were, stargazing. And when the two of us became frozen in place, three little gray guys came up the hill and inspected her. I could hear their telepathic banter saying, no, not her. She's no good. She's not the one. And then they walked down the hill, and then we were unfrozen, the girl I was dating and myself. We ran for the car. Right afterwards, she had, pretty much immediately after, she broke up with me. I hadn't yet told her about my experiencer side. We'd only been dating a couple months, and I knew at some point I would have to. Didn't think it was the right time yet, and then boom, that happened. While I didn't tell her that what had happened had anything to do with me, me. I knew she knew it had everything to do with me. That had marked a big difference. And once I got my life sort of settled in and the path that I was going, they seemed to be comfortable. Like, okay, let him do his thing, not interfere. We're happy at this point or whatever. And then they're probably focusing heavily on other people out there now, the same beings that I had so much interaction with.
What advice would you give, Bill, to anyone who has been abducted, but unlike you, they've chosen to keep their experience inside for fear of being looked down on and ridiculed for simply stating the truth that happened to them?
It's difficult to give a broad spectrum advice to anybody who may be in any sort of situation where it might be worse for them to open their mouth to anybody than it is therapeutic to do so. But one of the things that we have as a benefit now here in this great 21st century is things like Zoom, like we're on right now. And there are meetings out there of people that have had these types of experiences. You could go to MUFON and get referred to one of them. You could just simply sit in a meeting with your camera off, maybe a fake name, and sort of see and hear what other people are talking about, see if that is a good format for you to share. Or if you go to any MUFON chapter, all the states here in the U.S. and the provinces up in Canada, I mean, MUFON's in over 40 countries, over 4,000 members. There's definitely a welcome home there, and other groups that you might be able to find online to be able to connect you with other people that have had similar things happen to you. And it would be discreet. There isn't, you don't have to tell the world, but if you could reach out to one other person who's had something even somewhat happen, like what's happened to you, then there's tremendous benefit in connecting with somebody else who's had this type of thing happen.
Do you have any regrets, Bill, that you came out of the experiencer closet, so to speak, and chose to be open as you were and still are about interacting with alien beings instead of being quiet and not saying anything about it?
Maybe in that one case, maybe I should have said something a little sooner to that girl. So maybe my regret is not saying more, ironically. But my life worked out in the way it should have. So knock on wood, my life has been blessed. I am completely 100% open. My family, of course, very much knows. My friends know. The neighbors know. At work, I'm completely open. And it's funny that there are people, this has happened both at work and with my neighbors. They'll come up to me and they'll say, "Oh, I just finished your second book." And I'm like, "I've never talked about the experience with you. I never told you about this part of my life. You're coming up and saying something supportive, and I didn't even know that you knew." So it's funny how that happens. It's, like I said, it happens quite a bit at work. I've never had anybody that I know of treat me differently from this. That is not going to be the case with everybody. Since it is the case in my life, I feel like I should talk about it. If I can, somebody should be talking about it. If I'm not getting any backlash for doing so, then I'm going to keep talking about it.
Oh, I'm happy that you're talking about it and that you've written about it. I've thoroughly enjoyed this interview. Should viewers of Paranormal Yacker want to buy Experiencer and Experiencer 2, how do they do that?
It's available at the online retailers. You could get it at Amazon, Walmart, Barnes and Noble. There's been, you can also go to, here's something. Lulu is the publishing company that I use. If you go to one of those sites and it has the old art for my book, the cover of my first book, then I would say maybe go directly get it from Lulu. For my first book, it was reprinted. It's Experiencer Raised in Two Worlds. The correct cover has a UFO over a house. That's the one you want. That's the updated one. The old version has sort of an like a up close blurry alien face. That's the old version. But if you see the UFO over the house, yeah, that's the good one. And then my second book, Two Worlds Collide, has a cover that very well matches. Both excellent bits of art by Mike Cleland, wonderful artist and UFO investigator and researcher and all that. Mike's a great guy.
Bill Konkoleski, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yacker. You are wished much deserved success with your books. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yacker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched. To be sure you don't miss any interviews on my free YouTube channel, all you have to do is press the subscribe button on your screen.